Each Dark Eagle missile costs over $40 million, which is a price tag that signals not just advanced capability but a new phase in US-China rivalry. On the maps of the Western Pacific, new launchers appear at bases in Guam and the Philippines, reshaping the geometry of deterrence. And the terrain is very decisive, because Guam sits at 2,800 kilometers from Shanghai, while the Philippines' northmost islands are less than 1,000 kilometers from Taiwan's southern tip. Now, both locations are within reach of the Dark Eagle's reported 2,775-kilometer range, covering key Chinese naval bases, airfields, and logistics hub along the coast and deep into the mainland. But what makes the Dark Eagle different from legacy systems? Because it's not just the range that we're talking about here. The missile travels at hypersonic speeds over Mach 5, making it nearly impossible for current Chinese missile defenses to intercept. Its mobile launchers can reposition along highways or airfields, complicating Chinese targeting and forcing Beijing to allocate more ISR assets just to track them. Meanwhile, the US Army's deployment pattern is deliberate, because in March 2024, the first Dark Eagle battery arrived in the Philippines for exercises, with reports confirming Guam as a permanent basing option. So this places almost all of China's east coast, including major ports and air bases, within 15-minute strike windows. And with that being said, the system's mobility means it could be redeployed to Japan or even Australia, extending its threat envelope even further. So how does this change the calculus here? Previously, China's anti-access area denial strategy relied on keeping US surface ships and aircrafts at arm's length, by using DF-21 and DF-26 missiles to threaten carriers and bases out to 3,000 kilometers. But the Dark Eagle flips this logic, because now US ground forces can threaten Chinese assets from dispersed and hard-to-get target launchers on Allied territory, bypassing the need for vulnerable carrier groups. So put differently, the US can now hold China's logistics and command nodes at risk from land, not just from sea or air. Now, this forces China to rethink its own missile deployments, potentially pulling back high-value assets or investing in expensive new defenses. Because if you think about it, the cost per shot equation is now shifting. Each Dark Eagle missile is expensive, but so is the infrastructure China must now build to defend against them. So by any measure, the threat is not just physical but psychological as well. The knowledge that a hypersonic strike could land with little warning increases uncertainty in Chinese planning cycles. And as usual, this is not a moral judgment, it's an analysis of incentives and logistics. Now if we zoom out, the deployment of Dark Eagle batteries also strengthens US alliances, because the Philippines, once hesitant, now hosts US launchers, signaling deeper military integration. And Guam's hardened infrastructure like their runways, fuel depots, and radar arrays becomes even more valuable as a forward node for US power projection against China. Now let's talk about what China's doing to countermeasure this. Beijing is likely to accelerate its own hypersonic programs, and I'm sure you've seen the recent military parade where they showcased the DF-17 hypersonic missiles. However, the US advantage in allied basing and logistics like pre-positioned stocks, rapid airlifts, and secure comms remains hard to match in the near term. So this really changes the calculus dramatically in this power play. Tilt towards the US in any rapid escalation scenario, as China must now defend a broader set of targets with finite resources. The Dark Eagle's presence compresses China's decision timeline, raising the risks of miscalculation but also increasing deterrence. So ultimately, the Dark Eagle is not just a missile but a signal that the US can reach Beijing. And it tells Beijing that the US can strike deep, strike fast, and do so from unpredictable locations around. So in the evolving contest for dominance in the Western Pacific, this is a material shift, the one that puts more leverage and more risk in American hands. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more.